In my last video, I covered some of the first X-Men, but noticeably left out someone who was very important to them, who drastically impacted their lives, someone who made them who they are. Charles Xavier. The reason why is I have a lot of complicated feelings about him that were just too much to jam into that video. That's why this one exists. It won't be exclusively a hate brigade against Charles, so finish the video before you comment. Rarely do I truly dislike a character, because every one of them is a cog in the service of a larger narrative. There is an intention to why they are the way they are. Frieza is not real. His atrocities do not actually affect the world. That's a character that I love to hate. But the man that just can't help getting on my fucking nerves is Charles Xavier. He has not committed mass murder or genocide. He is leading a campaign in favor of mutant rights and coexistence, which is a great thing. So I hear you ask, why do you hate him? And we're going to start with a simple quote.
That white person that you see calling himself a liberal is the most dangerous thing in the entire Western Hemisphere. He's the most deceitful. He's like a fox, and a fox is always more dangerous in the forest than the wolf. You can see the wolf coming. You know what he's up to, but the fox will fool you. He comes at you with his mouth shaped in such a way that even though you see his teeth, you think he's smiling and you take him for a friend.
Eric Magnus Lyncher, in the early days, was a wolf. You know what he's up to, it is kind of malevolent, but he states his plans and philosophies out to the world, and he means them. Xavier openly preaches as well, but he is a fox that tells half-truths. Xavier truly does want a peaceful coexistence between humans and mutants, but that dream has conditions. Violence is thrust upon mutants in such great amounts where counter-violence can only be seen as defensive. But no, mutants must redirect that violence onto each other, not the state, who controls what kinds of violence is or is not allowed. Xavier fully believes in this state. He wants reform, not revolution. In the animated series, Charles and Magnus work together in a hospital in Germany after World War II. Remnants of the Nazis remain, trying to take the country back. Though Nazis trying to recapture Germany really doesn't seem like a very likely thing, because many of the remaining Nazis were given corporate jobs and government positions by the Allied powers. Therefore, there would be no real reason to recapture Germany. Opposed to them in the East, the Soviet-controlled East Germany flushed out most Nazis and replaced them with people that either fled or resisted Nazi Germany. So any denazification happened from the Soviets. Nazis kidnapped patients from the hospital, so of course, Magnus and Charles chase them down. When found out, Magnus tries to kill them, only to be stopped by Xavier. He won't let the man kill Nazis. Fucking Nazis. The same force that killed his friends, family, took his home, and forced him into a life of fear as their genocide reached across Europe. But no, not a single human life can be sacrificed, even if they have long given up their humanity. I feel like this is a moment that drove Magnus to the villainous point that we often see him, because he just lost his greatest friend over something so incredibly stupid. He starts to feel like, man, I should just kill anyone that doesn't agree with me at this point. But even then, he gives humanity chances.
Where any mutant may live apart from humanity, free from its cruelty. My mission is peaceful. Any intervention would make it otherwise. The decision is yours.
Killing innocent humans is normally something that only happens when he's in a dire situation or when he's gone to a very dark place. There's a part of him that still cares for humans, but if they're an obstacle, they will be removed, whether innocent or not. But there are a few people that Xavier is willing to kill, one of them being Magneto. Yes, his greatest friend and enemy is one of the very few people that Xavier will kill. The person that directly opposes him with the same level of care and charisma that can lead a movement of similar size eventually must be taken out, because it interferes too much with Xavier's dream. Arguing with Magnus over their lifelong dichotomy is tiresome, but it is dragged out so long because neither of them really listen to what the other one is trying to do. Once Xavier is gone, Magnus often joins the X-Men because the team changes and adapts, since now they have the freedom of finding a different way to do things. Magnus gives up on human genocide because the X-Men start embracing their identities fully and they aren't afraid to turn on the powers that be. Some context for the next thing. While Cyclops and the X-Men are trying to stop Juggernaut from rampaging through the city, the mayor just tries to blow up their island. Yeah. because she was like, well, they're busy, so we could do this now. So, of course, Cyclops has to do something about that. Scott, you know it's... Don't worry, I understand. I know it's your responsibility, and it made me realize what's mine. You may notice your body is no longer under your control. Across the street is a citizen of Utopia, a telepath. She's paralyzed you. If she wanted, she could make it permanent. If she wanted, she could stand you up, walk you out the window, and have you throw yourself out of it. We have dozens of mutants that could do something similar, perhaps artificially provoke a stroke. No one will ever know, but you will be dead. I like you a lot, Sadie. You've been good to us, and we will continue to do everything we can for San Francisco, but we will never be victims again. Scott, I have to ask, that voice, betray us for your safety. Did you consider it? Of course not. The X-Men become a more militant group, yes, but also one that still goes out of their way to protect innocent humans. While Magneto still believes mutants are a superior race, he helps humans and has been for a long time. He was a doctor because he cared, and now the X-Men reignite that part of him. So he can be swayed, but you must actually engage with what he has to say, and Charles never could. An honorable mention for this section. Before Hickman's Krakoa era, Xavier sent a team of mutants to Krakoa, including Scott Summers' brother. Then, they all died, so he covered it up and never told anyone. Xavier didn't know they were all gonna die, but he could have at least acknowledged his mistake. At the very least, especially when the man you consider a son lost a brother in part because of you. The one other mutant that Xavier tries and succeeds in killing is Matthew Malloy, the most powerful mutant the world ever forgot. His powers are vague but destructive. With the wave of his hand, he vaporizes anything. He accidentally kills many people. S.H.I.E.L.D. attacks him. He can't die, so when they shoot him, he just regenerates. And he destroys the helicarrier easily. His powers first activated as a child, killing his parents and leaving his house in rubble. Xavier is fearful of this child, so he begins suppressing his powers, then wiping his memory every year. And every year, Matthew's powers reactivate. Every time they do, it is technically the first time he is experiencing this overwhelming power, so he has absolutely no control. But after Xavier's death, he sends out a message about Matthew, revealing what he has done, and guess the person that is able to calm Matthew down to the point where he can focus, where he can control his powers. It's Cyclops. He's able to talk with him and have a normal conversation. He offers to go get breakfast with him because Matthew has been calmed to this point where he can think about his powers and kind of control what he's doing. Then a time traveler goes back in time to a young Xavier and tells him that Matthew is out of control, so Xavier basically erases him from the timeline by making sure that his parents never meet. It is technically preventing his life, but he already existed and then they went back. So I count this as a kill, especially because Matthew wanted to be alive and learn about his powers. It is going against his own will of wanting to live and get better. Granted, it does take a lot of convincing for him to stoop to this, but to Xavier, there are mutants worth killing, ones that get in his way or make his perfect idealized dream messier, but never, under any circumstance, is the greatest scum in this world allowed to be killed. To Xavier, a Nazi must be protected. The policemen that beat their wives, kill people and animals for the most minor of reasons, they must be protected. The only country in the world that voted against making food a human right must be protected. It makes me wonder why he is so dedicated to upholding the status quo. It must be because he benefits from it. You see, Xavier can pass as a non-mutant human, and he literally does in many cases. Most of the world doesn't know that he's a mutant, and they think that he's this kind human that has taken pity on the downtrodden, and that's exactly what he wants them to think. He wants to be like them. He comes from a rich family, he has so much to lose. As history shows, the rich will always take the side of fascists as long as it protects their capital. But to Xavier, there's another level to it. He has this savior complex. He's destined to integrate these mutants into human society, but not for them to achieve their full freedoms. His great wealth is why he can provide for so many people, but if his wealth was redistributed into society, it would make it so these people wouldn't need to be saved from anything like homelessness. Without the rich hoarding all the money, there wouldn't be such sky-high prices for homes or food. Speaking of being selfish, when Xavier says,
"To me, my X-Men,"
it is so possessive because this is his dream and he owns everything in it. A normal boy who has been broken, blinded, and has had his whole life stripped away, replaced by uncontrollable distraught and hopelessness, is given a responsibility, an opportunity to focus his vision, the professor's vision. Xavier raises him like a son. He changes this boy's life for the better. He gives him food, friends, shelter, a home. He instills confidence, wisdom, and hope into this boy, making him a man. But that man is like a soldier. He repeats all the things his father has told him because they are what he is founded on. Until Xavier dies or leaves and all the contradictions of his philosophy are what lay in his absence. The man now sees the value in both Xavier and his greatest enemy's ideas. He sees the flaws in them too. In Avengers vs. X-Men, Cyclops and his team attain the power of the Phoenix. The Phoenix is a corrupting power. It should rightfully be checked. But after the X-Men purify all the water on Earth, create an infinite energy source, and create farms with enough food to abolish world hunger. With what the X-Men have done with this power, people have started to love them. But Professor X has a problem with it. Then I'm sure you understand my concern perfectly. The power you're wielding, it unnerves the world. People are afraid. You always told me you should never fear tomorrow, Professor. This is a new day. You don't need the visor anymore, do you, Scott? No. Then why wear it? Once a great man taught me the value of having a singular vision, of seeing the world as it could be. I would never want to forget that. This is not what I meant. I know. It's something better. Right now, we are remaking the world, transforming it into a better place for all living things. There will still be fallout. Of course, the old ways have changed. Those who oppose will bend. Remember what you taught us, Professor. They will change. Mankind will accept the future. I believe that. I always have. I know, but not like this. It's cheating. It has cost nothing. Cost nothing? No, Professor. We have paid a high price for far too long. Reality itself can be what we want it to be. Don't you see? The day you have longed for has arrived. Here is your dream, Charles. I have given it to you. His problem is that there was no struggle? Are you fucking kidding me? So many years have passed with so many mutant genocides. There are less than 200 mutants left, and there wasn't enough struggle? Those are extinction numbers. But it's not enough. More had to die. More had to struggle in an endless uphill fight. And do you know why? Because Xavier didn't do it. He didn't save the mutants. He didn't save humans. And the world is given a chance to no longer suffer the effects of late-stage capitalism. Pollution, world hunger, and a lack of energy are all from corporations using up every piece of the world that they can and then disposing of the waste in disastrous ways. That's it. That is truly the reason for all his behavior. He wants to be the one that improves the world. That is the crux of everything. He can't just let anyone else do it. That is why I fucking hate him so much. That's why he pisses me off so much. He's so close, but he just can't let other people be better than him in this. He can't let other people lead his dream like this. The scene in X-Men 97 where he confronts the Shi'ar about their imperialism confirms to me that he is very aware of what's happening in the world.
The power of your empire is in truth a harvest of stolen worlds. Younger cultures that, had they not been tilled to death, would now be empires rivaling your own. Fearing this, you strike at the knees and claim you can help them walk again. But only if they assimilate, submit, that for me to be more, you must be less. Your existence against mine, because... Why? Says who? Who made up these silly rules?
We did, beloved. Playing make-believe.
States influenced by their corporate donors pillage and destroy other countries to build more space to generate revenue. And in these wars, people starve. CO2 from bombs heighten climate change. So the Shi'ar Empire reflects one that we know very well. And yet, He was so set, so ready to be a ruler of such a place. Maybe he thought he could change it from the inside. Maybe he thought that he could have a new dream to work towards. But one man cannot change a system. He can be so easily replaced. It takes a collective. So many people, to the point that if one person is replaced, it won't matter. When Jean Grey was a little girl, she had little control of her powers, and that's scary. There's this possibility that you can slip or lash out because of that fear, and she needed someone who can truly understand her. Xavier was the perfect person to see Jean here and steer her on the right path. Someone that can deliver soothing words directly into her brain without even moving their mouth, just like she could. I doubt that Jean would be so empathetic or caring without Xavier's influence. Without him, her and so many other mutants might end up dead or homeless. But as I've said before, with the power that he wields, that's just not enough. I used to love Charles so much, and I still partly do, but I just can't look at him the same as I used to. The Krakoan age really shows us the possibilities of what can be done. This is an island cut off from those who could cause it harm, with a functioning moneyless society that provides free food and housing for all that live there. It is not perfect. The government still contains some questionable choices and a set of laws that are not yet fully established. Krakoa stands and provides because they managed to create and sell cures for all sorts of conditions that were previously considered incurable. So no one has to work for things like food or housing that are basic rights. But also when it comes to housing, it is a magical island that grows buildings out of itself. So that part kind of isn't realistic. But all this was only achieved after someone who has lived the failures of Xavier's dream and many others by living multiple lives could break through to him and permanently change him. Together they built a society made by all mutants for all mutants, where dreams no longer cloud the minds of men. Hey, I just wanted to take a second to thank everybody that watched this video, because I never expected these videos that I'm doing for fun to get any kind of views. It's just awesome that people care about what was being said. So yeah, peace.